Technology Corner. Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop. John Haidt in the newsroom. And of course, the Rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
State Representative Pat Garofalo is sitting across from me. You were a little late to that POS electric car of yours that starts.
Wow.
Just
right
off
the
the
bat.
bat.
Right away.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it comes out swinging. No, I deserve it. No, I was working my private sector job and had to take care of some things that.
Has it been starting in this cold weather?
Yeah. It's just but what happens is
what do you get about 6 blocks and then you got to take it home again?
No, it does reduce the range, but but it's nothing like that. I mean, if you're driving a couple 100 miles, you'll have a problem. But for
Pat, you shocked us. Well, maybe it isn't entirely a shock. It was a disappointment as far as I'm concerned, or a sadness. You're leaving the legislature, what, 20 years? Going to call it 20 years?
Yep, 10 terms.
And you're leaving?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
It's funny. I remember the last time I was on here, you asked me, you looked at me and you go, "So are you going to run again?" And I looked at you and I said, "I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
And you just gave me this look like, "Listen, kid, I got a perfect bullshit detector and I know that you're not doing it." It's like, you just like you play poker or not?
No, I don't.
Okay, because I feel like I got a good poker face, and you looked at me like you are so full of it. Like, no, you've made up your mind. So no, it's no. I mean, I've done it for 19 years. I've really enjoyed it. I enjoy learning and discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I like making a difference. It's cool. But it's just, politics is not a marathon. You don't run till you're exhausted and collapse across the finish line. It's a relay race. You go, you sprint as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and then you pass the baton to someone else. And it's just time for me to pass the baton to someone else.
But we're running out of rational human beings. Doubt's done. You're done. We still have Marion O'Neill. I can't think of, the Republicans have not made a strong showing. So I'm hard pressed to name a great many of them.
Well, I think, first of all, in the House of Representatives, we got a pretty good freshman class this year that I think will do good things in the future. But I do think your general criticism of what's happening in both parties is you are certainly seeing more and more polarizing and extreme elements that are dominant things. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's more important than ever. Like, who people vote for is their own business, but until one of the political parties calms down, you need divided government.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have one party in total control, or else you get and it happened in states where Republicans are in total control. You see this, but in Minnesota, we've seen the left-wing freak show just take over, and it's bad for Minnesota. It can't be. Having Minnesota's strategy be that we're going to be a cold version of Illinois is not, that's not something that's going to serve us well. And hopefully the next election, both state and federally, however it turns out, people see that there's wisdom in having checks and balances between the two parties. The
financial irresponsibility in the last session was astounding.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement. They blew through the surplus and raised taxes, and it's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
Not enough.
The governor just announced a new an infrastructure bonding plan, and he always comes in under a certain number. He'll name it like $982 million, knowing that it'll be $1.5 billion by the time you're done. We've spent a year on this, and you're aware of that. And I just look ahead and I wonder, is there any hope for the state? And I'm going to suggest that you probably are going to tell me there is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always try to be an optimist, contrary to my tone comes across sometimes. But I mean, I'm 52 years old, and I've spent my whole life saving and building a nest egg. And so the older you get, you start getting more concerned about threats to your nest egg and things that you've saved money for. And there are certainly a lot of threats on the horizon, both in the state of Minnesota, but also nationally, internationally. We've seen that, how these things can spiral out of control. And I'm very worried. It doesn't mean like I'm building my bunker, although I found out last weekend that one of my cousins actually moved to a bunker. I didn't know that.
He literally built a bunker?
No, he's got like his compound out in central Montana.
Yeah.
And I gotta admit, it sounded kind of, he's got good internet. I don't know, it sounded kind of nice. But so no, I mean, I do worry about the state of Minnesota because, it's these things don't happen overnight. They decay. And it's not like the prosperity Minnesota had in the past has been continuing. We have been for an intermediate period of time. We've been in a state of decay. We've been best case scenario, we're stagnant, and that concerns me because these things they pile on top of each other. Look at the history of what Detroit used to be,
right,
and look at what St. Louis used to be,
right.
And it just took a couple of bad decisions by bad leaders to dramatically change the course of those areas. And
why don't you throw in any city, the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings, that is led by the radical left? Look at downtown San Francisco. It doesn't exist anymore.
It blows me. It's sometimes it's you don't want to be conspiratorial, but you look and you just wonder.
Well, go ahead.
No, but like you look at it and you go,
"You're not running again."
Yeah,
I don't give a shit. Yeah.
No, it's not. Listen, like you look at a place like San Francisco and California, like that state has every single advantage from a natural resource, from a climate standpoint, and it's still the cultural and technological center of the Western Hemisphere. But they are just bleeding people and money. And on a smaller scale, we're doing the same thing here. And you can't help but wonder how do you look at the negative effects of these policies and not realize that you're causing destruction, and how could it not be deliberate? But this is a consequence of polarization, right? Is that in a hyper-polarized political climate, people just kind of believe what they want to believe. I can. It's easy for us here in Minnesota to highlight the far left extreme and the damage they're doing, but we can provide examples of other parts of the country where Republicans are in total control and they're off the rails. I mean, down in Mississippi, what they do, how much money did they give Brett Favre? Yeah. So I mean, you've got examples of that, but the most important thing is for Minnesota's future and really for the nation's is to have divided government. I know that doesn't sound particularly sexy or exciting, but good old fashioned diversification, disbursement of risk is what Minnesota needs right now, and it's pretty concerning when you look at the horizon. Minnesota we don't have a deficit. We don't have a projected deficit. We have a structural imbalance, as if though our fiscal problems are a marketing problem as opposed to a math, classic Washington D.C. speak. And regardless of who gets elected and whether if we're able to return Minnesota to divided government next year, the next budget is not going to be fun. And that's the blue sky scenario. That's assuming there isn't going to be.
How much of that weighed into your decision not to run?
Tough questioning. I think it was a part of it, but it was a small part of it. The big thing is that, being a legislator, and again, I don't want to come across as complaining. There's many aspects of the job I love. I enjoy meeting people. If I wasn't a dopey legislator, how would I get on this program and have you give me shit about my car, right? So I really do. I do like aspects of it, but especially in this era of 24/7 social media, constant criticism, constant craziness, it does wear on you, and it's actually harder on a spouse, And so it's just 19 years. I just felt like that was the primary factor. Was it was just time to move on. Now I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm a network engineer, but I do know that I want to be involved. I want to be a positive contributing.
Well, are you employed? Do you have a job?
Yeah. So I'm a network engineer. So I'm one of these odd ducks who, for 19 years has worked 2 full-time jobs. I've worked as a legislator and my private sector job. And something I've said before, like my dad is the hardest working man I've met on the planet. And he is so hardworking that I've worked 2 jobs for 19 years and I still feel like I'm lazy.
So, but see, that leads me to an important question.
I know the feeling.
A two-part question. You working the 2 jobs, didn't that give you a sense of balance? That you were bringing something to the legislature that many of them could not bring?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And second part of the question, how big a problem is it? I know the answer. I mean, I don't care what you say. I know the answer. How big a problem? I do care what you say. I'm kidding. How big a problem is it that the legislature continues to attract people who have never done anything except pine to be in the legislature?
I'll take it in a more general sense. It's a problem that you have fewer types of people in the legislature. So we've always had lawyers, teachers, retired people have always, recently have been overrepresented at the Capitol. That's always been an issue. But now that's sort of the professional politician who makes their mortgage payment because they're a state legislator. That is becoming more prevalent. And it's more prevalent on the DFL side than the Republican side. But that is a problem because you have sort of an activist class that when they go through their activist training and their community organizing stuff, no one teaches
those
them.
are jobs.
No, but no one teaches them the skills of here's how you compromise. Like here's how you like this is how you work with people so that there's win-wins and you reach negotiations. It's more a binary choice of you win an election and then when you're in, you do what you want. That's why, as shocking as last session was, it really, in hindsight, shouldn't have been a surprise to everybody because you do have this sort of, despite very, very narrow majorities, just a very hard trained activist class that's running the legislature.
And that's all they've ever done.
Right. I mean, government is for many of them their temple.
Right.
Right. And they look at people like me and others as the Pharisees in the temple. Like we don't belong there. So that's why the end sometimes justifies the means. And of course, I'm not generalizing every single DFLer here. I don't want people to come across that way, but there is a decidedly harder left, farter.
You said fart.
Yeah, it was a farther left session too, but farther left bent of this that we have not seen before. In the past, there's always been a debate about Minnesota being center left or center right, like every 2 or 4 years. It's only in 2023 that the case was made that Minnesota needs to go far left, hard left, more like an Oregon, a California, or an Oregon or Illinois. And that's the concerning part because what historically, contrary to public opinion, what Minnesota's best asset has been historically is social cooperation. Okay, and that doesn't mean in government's just one of those tools, but that whether it was in government, outside of government, or private sector institutions, faith-based institutions, that we socially cooperated and worked towards shared goals. And we are regressing to the point where not only are we not good at it, we're actually getting worse than other states at it.
Were you surprised at all, or have you been surprised by the behavior or the positions of the governor?
Yeah, I have been.
Yeah.
When he, you flash back to the first time that he ran, it's not like I was a fan of a DFL or getting elected governor, but of the choices that were out there, it looked like he would be the one that would be most inclined to have pragmatic instincts, right? That he would.
I thought so.
But I think that's what a lot of people thought. And regrettably, for whatever reason, you have to ask him. He did not.
He won't come on with us.
I wouldn't blame him.
Thanks a lot.
Well, no, I mean, this is you get again, and I say that in our self-selecting media, confirmation bias world where people hear what they want to hear.
Right.
He has gravitated towards an environment where he surrounds himself with people that that tell him what he wants to hear, and that's a problem that's afflicting more and more leaders, political and otherwise, in our society. And so he doesn't have, it's not fun to be Tim Walz outside the 7-county metro area. I don't dispute that.
He didn't even campaign outside of the 7-county metro area.
And it turns out he didn't need to. Right. Which is, it's bizarre, but I just, I would like to think that if I was in a similar position of that I would have the self-awareness to realize I was doing it and to step outside my comfort zone, because I've done that as a legislator. So I mean, the governor would serve the state better if he tried to include more people in the decision making and represent more people besides the far left, hard left of the DFL.
It seems clear to me that that's who he represents, the hard left.
Yeah, and whether that's out of political necessity, political convenience, or maybe that's who he has really been, and he
or could it be political aspiration?
Oh, I mean, and that could be part of it as well. I mean, I think he desperately wants to go back to Washington D.C.
Then we've got to warn the nation.
Well, in what capacity? I
know.
don't. Yeah, no, but like he, you know, you're in everyone in Washington D.C. say what you want. They don't really do nothing, you know.
Yeah.
They raise money, tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah.
When something gets bad, blame somebody else for something. And again, that's throwing rocks at both parties here, but it's true. I mean, we have a $2 trillion deficit this year.
Mm-hmm.
$2 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen because one party did it,
Right?
Right? So in that sort of unsustainable behavior is, you know, the consequences to this are coming to fruition. When that's going to happen, I can't tell you, but math can be very